There we go. So hello everyone, and thank you all for being with us today for this seminar. This is the first seminar of the seminar series on global issues in green business. We are with the M2 program in sustainability and green business at the apprenticeship level. And today we are hosting Charlotte Francke and Sarah Hähnel from the company, The Future Living. Charlotte Francke is the co-founder of the company, and Sarah Hähnel is a project manager, actively engaged in the knowledge generation and transfer activities of The Future Living. They will both present us what The Future Living does, what it aims at, how it proceeds, what kind of methods they're using to ensure that they can assist in the efficient transition of different types of institutions and corporations into the necessity of sustainability and environmental adaptation. So we have two students with us, Maunze and Karam, who will be interviewing Charlotte and Sarah, and they will lead this seminar. So I leave the floor to Charlotte and Sarah, and I thank you all again for your attention.
Thank you very much, Christelle, for the very lovely introduction. I will quickly share my screen. Okay. Okay. Now I have to find the right button here. There we go. Okay, ready to go. So hello and welcome from our side as well. My colleague Sarah and I, Charlotte, are excited to be here today. And as you will see, we work with universities and students a lot, and it is an essential part of our organization's identity. So thank you very much, Christelle, for the invitation today to spend the next 1.5 hours with you, or roughly 1.5 hours. As per the brief, we would like to talk with you and to you about the current and future trends working in environmental sustainability and social sustainability, or adaptation, from our point of view. Of course, a little disclaimer here. Naturally, this is tainted by our experiences and values. So only time will really tell whether our prognoses are actually correct. But yeah, that said, we're definitely working towards it. We will, of course, provide you with some insights today into what it is that we are actually doing, and where we see the SDG, DHG, ESG, CSR, etc. space moving to. And we're definitely curious about what questions you might have and what ideas. As per our general approach to work, we integrate your perspectives, views and wishes into this conversation, and therefore we would like to take some surveys throughout the presentation using Mentimeter. So as you can see here, you can answer questions through your phone or laptop, and we will start with a little trial question. So if you maybe can go to menti.com and type in the code, or use this QR or scan this QR code on the screen, and then you will be able to access the Mentimeter. I will quickly need to switch there as well. Brilliant. Okay, you're super fast. That's fantastic. How are you feeling today? A lot of you already managed to talk about it. Very few of you are stressed. No one. That's brilliant. Most of you are happy and curious, a little bit tired. That's understandable. I heard you had some exams starting already in this week. So yeah, fabulous. Now you have an idea of how Mentimeter works. Please feel free to join it. We will go through the different slides in Mentimeter as well. So please don't close this throughout the session. We will have more questions. And of course, we have some more in-depth question than how do you feel today? And the next one is also one that really has something to do with the founding story of the Future Living. And yeah, so I will switch to the next question, and that is, what do you want from your future work? So as I said, this leads to the reason why we founded the Future Living, and is also an indication of where it is heading. Yeah, and because this question is a little bit more profound, in a sense, I will give you some time to answer it, and meanwhile breathe through some facts around the founding of the Future Living. Searching back, there we go. So I'm going to start with one sentence that explains roughly what we're doing. So the Future Living supports businesses, organizations, and governmental institutions to become more environmentally sustainable through employee engagement and transformation strategies. So ultimately, the straightforward story is that the company was founded in Limerick, Ireland in 2019 as a limited, and then was founded as a GmbH, which is a German version of the limited, right outside of Berlin in 2021. Along the way, of course, many people have shaped and contributed to building this organization. Well, in terms of our organization's age, I believe we're pretty much toddlers. So we are young, we are playing around, we definitely have a strong play drive in what we're doing, making and keeping things exciting and being curious. We're currently a team of ±8 people. We definitely do work in different capacities and mainly remotely. So we have people currently working from the UK, from Germany, and from Canada, but that actually changes regularly as well, where people are based. Another thing that really makes us is that we definitely enjoy a lot of collaboration projects. So we work with external experts, research institutes, universities, of course, and other businesses like our own to really share skills and experiences, as well as build capacities and learn from one another. Yeah, what I believe to be a little bit more interesting than the legalities of this framework of how we are built are the reasons for the founding of the organization, because what this development and the founding of the organization shows is definitely a learning curve and a transition in itself, which reflects the overall state of the environmental sustainability sector quite well. So we'll go through that in a little bit more detail in a moment, and we can draw conclusions from this to the future prognosis of the industry itself. Before we do that, though, I would like to switch to brilliant. So the Mentimeter survey worked. Let's take a look at your responses. You can see they're continuously changing. Amazing. So there's a good atmosphere, learning and growing, doing something useful, absolutely makes sense. Being engaged, meaningful, a value you believe in, absolutely. Blooming, that's a lovely word as well. Remote, yeah, that's something that we do, that we've always done since we were founded. Feel the right place. Yeah, brilliant. I think those are things that absolutely make sense. We can 100% relate to that. Stimulating work. Oh yeah, absolutely. We have that too. Yeah, fabulous. So I would like to talk with you a little bit about what that means for us, all these things, and why we founded the Future Living and how we are developing. So basically the reason for founding the Future Living is the idea of a product in the widest sense, and a company that internally and externally support people and planet. So that means we are actively working on both ends, building a company that fulfills a purpose externally as well as internally. And here I would like to start a little bit into our internal workings. You can see here in some excerpts from a code of conduct session that we had. These are sessions where the team defines our internal values, and the values for the organization and that we want to work by, and we also create from this guidelines or even temporary rules. And here I've picked a few out that might be interesting. So it reads here: to fulfill our purpose, we commit to placing people and planet over profit. That means that exponential growth with no limits was and is by no means our goal as an organization. Instead, we certainly drive for social and environmental values. Further examples are maybe in our working structure. Really, we definitely experiment with fluent job roles. So depending on the project or the task, the roles will definitely change. So one day I might lead a project, one day I might support a project. In one place I decide things, in another place I might just execute things. So this is something where we purposefully challenge the traditional ways of hierarchy, roles, and decision making, because we feel it could be better than it is traditionally done. Further, we share our learnings and experiences openly. So for this means, or one of the things that means in our organization is that everyone has access to all information and documents that are within the organization, apart from where it is legally necessary to not disclose them. But this is really a policy of transparency. So if anyone wants to look into the finances of the organization, please feel free to do so internally. Further, I mean, I feel one of the quite interesting things that we have decided over the years as well, that comes together with the fact of we are looking after we prioritize actually our physical and mental well-being. So I think we spoke about it earlier. We closed for a couple of weeks over Christmas and just said that's it for everyone. So we're doing things like that, but I feel one of the more interesting things is really our basic rule that we do not work with people we don't want to work with, or more clearly, we decide as a team we don't want to work with jerks. So even if there is a juicy offer, of course you can't always avoid working with people that you don't particularly love. That's normal, absolutely. But we do make conscious decisions about who we want to work with and who we want to engage with, and where we find this maybe a little bit too much for our organization or for our people to have to deal with. So these are only some examples. And of course, by no means this is a finished product. This will absolutely change. We do not intend to ever stop this journey of development internally. So we are reviewing these processes constantly and continuously. Ultimately, what we want is a good working place shaped by individual people. Now, I would like to go over to the topics of our internal development, because here you can see in our products, you can see a transition to. So our focus, as mentioned, is and has always been employee engagement to create change and to bring transformation into organizations. But originally, the idea was to build a platform that supports people on a journey to zero waste. So this was thought as a first entry point into an overall more environmentally friendly lifestyle and attitude. The focus here always lied on skill building rather than knowledge absorption. So we felt there is a lot of knowledge out there. Often people don't necessarily know what to do with that and how to develop it and implement it. So that was what we were focusing on, or what we are still focusing on. Over the years, we found that absolutely makes sense, which is great. and the concept could definitely be extended to other topics. So we have, so meaning like we can do status mapping of environmental topics in any type of organization, but also on any sort of level, whether this is waste, whether this is other topics, just to like create change and do knowledge management. We can certainly extend to different topics. And yeah, ultimately what we found as well was that we're slightly ahead of time. And that our solution is best placed with organizations who already have a sustainability department or a person or a similar structure that supports environmental sustainability and who want to go the extra mile. The reality, though, is that most organizations are not yet there and do not even know how to start. And wanting to have a direct impact immediately, this is something that we decided was necessary. We worked on as well. So the solution that we found was providing certain consultancy services true to our values and beliefs, matched with the needs of organizations and in line with our future vision of developing IT that is truly like enables engagement and exchange. So in short, you will hear a little bit more about what we're doing later on, but in short, these services include CO2 accounting and environmental certifications. So whether that is B Corp, ISO certifications, EMAS, name them all. Then we do create and facilitate innovation processes, and we develop scalable participatory processes and do innovation management. So again, what the real value proposition of this is, we can currently, for us, we can meet the current needs of organizations and have an immediate impact. That is always important in our work, that we do have an impact. And we can also do amazing case studies with organizations and sort of further develop our products on the job. When you think about it, so we can really look into the bigger picture, learn from every job that we are on, every organization, for our IT development, and keep that in mind, and think, how can we make things easier? How can we make processes more digital and more accessible for organization? Yeah, of course. Also, what is definitely useful is that it keeps us independent in the sense that we have a financial income stream. So that is absolutely also a practical reason why it makes sense to combine the product development together with the consultancy services or the organization support in that matter. Yeah, now that I've told you a little bit about how the business came about, I'm very happy to hand over to Sarah, who will explore with you a little bit more the rationale behind our work.
Thank you very much. Then I'll take over. Hi, I'm super happy to be here. Thanks. And yeah, thank you, Charlotte, for this very nice overview. I think you've now managed to sum up the purpose and everything of TFL in a very short amount of time. I, on the other hand, would like to dive into a bit more of a detailed view now, and I would like to take you through the substantive issues that TFL deals with on a daily basis, and I want to explain to you a bit more in detail why we actually do what we're doing. And as Charlotte has already said, TFL does concern itself majorly with how can we achieve a sustainable transformation. And we have already gained a bit of an experience during the whole process that we've gone through already. But what we found consistently is that transforming into a more sustainable structure, becoming more sustainable, is just a massive task. And a lot of people are very, very overwhelmed, especially when it comes to an organizational context. And we often find when we talk to CEOs, when we talk to management, that they're just massively overwhelmed and just do not know where to start, actually. And it is hard You know, you have to meet so many different perspectives. You have to meet the governmental regulations. You have to report, but you also have to kind of meet the things you want to satisfy your customers, but you also want to stay profitable in a sustainable way. So it is hard to transform basically every part of your business. So yeah, that's a huge challenge. And I already see you're very active, and that's amazing. We actually wanted to ask you, brilliant minds, young, fresh, new ideas. Like what do you think would be needed to actually achieve a sustainable transformation? Because we are constantly learning, as Charlotte said, and we are always there for some inspiration. So let's see what you've come up with. Training, teamwork, guiding, yeah, definitely. Human rights, engagement, commitment, that's a massive thing, yeah. Solutions, yeah, we would all be happy to have those. Good governance, committed employees, that's absolutely true. Commitment, oh yeah, there's a lot of commitment there. That's great. That's definitely needed for such a huge challenge. Great, thank you so much. Now, I want to tell you what we've come up with and what we think might be a possible solution, or a teeny tiny bit to the solution, to achieving a sustainable transformation. And actually, I want to show you some research that we've done to kind of base our reasoning a bit more on cool numbers and statistics. So you can see here a graph, I hope you can all see it clearly, of organizational attitude of sustainability. And we have basically asked a lot of different types of organizations a couple of questions. We sent them a survey, and they gave us back their answers at what they've answered. So if you ask them, what is your attitude towards sustainability? What are you actually doing in regards to sustainability? There you can see there are a lot of mixed answers. The good news is 50% said that some work is already being done. Great. 1/4 actually said that it's one of the main KPIs, even better. But sadly, a quarter also said that they are actually not considering, or they do not know. And when you look into these things in a bit more detail, it becomes clear that especially the large corporations or organizations with more than 1,000 employees, or like a bit or the ones that have a bit less than 1,000 employees, are actually the most active ones. That's kind of reasonable, as they also have to adhere to more governmental regulations, because they say mostly that it is one of their main KPIs to actually become sustainable. The smaller ones instead, with less than 50 employees, they are a bit more on the I don't know side, or I cannot actually consider it because I have too few resources. And that's understandable, because they don't have a lot of departments. They can't afford a sustainability department, etc. But it would be nice to give them also kind of alternatives to act upon these kind of things, because oftentimes a lot of people are willing to. Because they're like 47% of our participants state that employees are interested and motivated to participate in sustainability initiatives. So you can see there is a lot of motivation, a lot of commitment that you also said, which is all we wish for. Also, 79.2% of our survey participants said or confirmed that the organization they work for is actually aware of sustainability. So sustainability has now reached a point that everyone basically knows about it. Everyone knows it is kind of important. And 60% even confirmed that the engagement of employees boosts the sustainability performance. So they acknowledge that working together on this issue might be very profitable and very good for the organization. But sadly, it is a two-sided medal. So on the one side, you have everyone is motivated, everyone is committed, which is absolutely great, and the best thing that we can start with. But on the other side, you also have to acknowledge that only 25% of organizations encourage all members to work on sustainability goals, or organizations most of the time or often indicate that they actually don't know how to start. So there we have this issue. So everyone is kind of aware, but there is still this hurdle how can I actually become active? How can I get there? And that is kind of where we as TFL come into the picture. So we also say that I think Charlotte, you could yeah, perfect, thank you. We as TFL also acknowledge that working together, as Charlotte said, cooperation is key. So working together in an organization is the best thing you can do, because every organization is different. Every organization has different needs. So there is no perfect solution for everyone. So it would be best if you actually ask the experts in your organization, hey, what we can do. And the experts are the employees. So they already know the internal processes. They are already aware of all the things that are going on. So it would be best that they actually find the solutions, and it would be the most efficient. You don't have to get new people, and you don't have to explain everything again. So we as TFL think that employees are the single most important factor for change, and they can actually change the entire organization. On the other hand, they could of course also block it. So they have a lot of power here. And as we just saw in our little survey, in most organizations, employees are actually willing to tackle the topic of environmental and social sustainability. There is a lot of commitment, there is a lot of motivation, so there is a lot of potential. Also, that's like kind of a cool side fact, which is nice, that employee engagement is actually mandatory for standards such as EMAS, which corporations now have to incorporate. So we as TFL say, hey, let's concentrate on employee engagement and let's teach employees how to change. Let's enable them to become the people who can actually drive the change, which can be beneficial for every party, actually, basically. And I would want to show you an example. We did do several different tests with different companies, and one of those is a German printing agency. It's a small one, and the task was to tackle the issue of waste in a specialized industry. In this company was quite small. There were 15 employees, and they all decided together to work on the topic of waste. So they actually, so we as TFL guided them through the process, and they used photographs and descriptions to kind of create a map to show them what is actually happening right now. Because most of the time, people are actually not aware what they're doing. Like it's a daily task. They're doing these kind of things every day. So you actually have to, first of all, define status quo, what is actually happening here, before you can act upon something. So these employees then looked at all of the stuff that was going on, and then they could actually, or were able to, formulate problems and formulate things that they wanted to improve. So as soon as they did that, they viewed, they looked at everything in more detail. They viewed insights into material impacts, and they tried to formulate solutions to these problems, and they voted for them in kind of a process. So which kind of solution do we want to try? And then they actually tried them and see if that worked. And that was that was really successful. So these were really simple things that they started with, but actually they proved to be very, very efficient. So, for example, moving bins into different positions can increase recycling by 40%, or cut-off material of truck tire can be reduced by 30% when operators are better instructed and equipment is better maintained. So it was all about making them aware and teaching them how to actually find solutions by themselves in order to kind of generate a self-maintaining process. Because now they have actually started developing solutions on their own and started new rounds, new trials, and can actually now self-direct solutions and make their organization more sustainable. So this is one area that we are operating in. And so now I've touched upon already the fact that employees are one of the main drivers of change, or can be one of the main drivers of change. And actually a lot of other sources, when you look through them support our hypothesis and confirm that it needs a team or it needs collaboration to actually make the sustainable transformation work. One strong source that we found, and then I want to show you today, is the LinkedIn Green Skills report that actually confirms that the labor market is changing. And now we are again really interested in your expertise as people who will be soon entering the labor market, and we actually want to know about your perception. So how do you feel about it? What do you think are key skills that you need to bring to the table in these times of life that define your future work? That's great. Yeah, absolutely. We need creativity. Awareness, passion, really nice. Patience, yeah. Motivation, that's true. Quantitative skills, open-mindedness, absolutely. Innovation, 100% true. Continuous learning, that's a very, very important skill. Engagement, determination, oh yeah. Really nice. You all seem to be very interested, committed, and compassionate about the things that you love and do. That's everything one could wish for, basically, a dream come true. What this LinkedIn report says, of course, you all need these skills that you just mentioned, but LinkedIn has analyzed all the traffic that has happened on their platform for the past couple of years and gathered the data about it. And actually, they were able to draw some very interesting conclusions from that. And as you can imagine from Green Skills report, there are certain trends now emerging in the labor market that have to do something with green skills and sustainability. So this report defines certain trends right now going on. And these are all connected to the topic of sustainability. So, good news if you want to start a business and you're interested in sustainability, because that's actually right now the field where the most traffic is taking place. So green entrepreneurship is growing at a fast rate, and actually faster than all the other fields. So that's nice. We all need this innovation that you just talked about. But consequently, as the number of businesses is growing, also the demand of skilled labor in these kind of fields is growing. That's good news for us being interested in sustainability as well. Globally, also, the so-called green workers, so the workers who have green skills and know their way around sustainability topics, are actually hired or were hired at a higher rate than non-green workers in the last years. Also, when looking back, we've now gone through several crises, unfortunately. First Corona, now we have the war, but green jobs proved to be more resilient than other jobs. So people working in green skill jobs were less likely to be laid off than other workers. So apparently, jobs in these fields also provide a larger extent of security, especially in crisis. Also, as mentioned previously, there are more and more businesses growing in this field, but also other businesses are now changing and changing their focus towards more sustainability. So there is huge demand for green skilled labor, and therefore it is not a big surprise that the demand of green skills will soon outpace the supply. So actually, looking at that, it sounds really promising. There's a huge new field emerging, which is nice, and organizations actually seem to acknowledge the fact that employees can actually really make the change, and they're actively looking for labor in this field to actually drive the change. But again, as it is always, there is also another side to the medal. So it is quite interesting that actually, even though the demand is so high, the supply is not there. Workers moving into the green skills and acquiring these skills is actually way too low to meet the demand. And the report is actually crystal clear about what should happen in the future in order to make the sustainable transformation work. So it says green skills intensity needs to increase in every sector and country to build the supply needed and meet the demand required to achieve climate goals. And now, because you're in Paris, you're in France, I want to quickly turn the focus there, because especially when you're looking at France, one can see that there is a lot of potential for green skills and that the labor market is actually demanding it in a very, very high, to a high extent. Because in France, a normal job requires, on average, more than half of the green skills that were required in the world. So you can say that when you're entering into the labor market in France, you will be required to have more green skills than the average world employee. So as acquiring green skills in France is especially important and has a very great potential. Yeah. So what are we doing in TFL to tackle this issue? Because we need a lot of more green skills. TFL tries to teach green skills. And we try to develop programs that motivate young adults, that motivate young students to actually get in touch with these topics and to further develop interest and skills. Because Charlotte said already, we're very closely working with universities, we're very closely working with organizations that are actually there to teach. So this is something that we very passionately do, and we love that, and we love to bring people closer to that topic. For example, we are right now developing certain workshops also targeted at students in universities that want to teach them more sustainability topics that and that just want to engage in that field. Also, Another thing that we did just this summer is called Summer School of Solutions. That was a really great thing to do. We were collaborating with a university in Bremen, and we were matching international students from all over the world. I don't know, we had students from England, we had students from America, we had students from Ukraine, like all of the different places that you can imagine. And we matched organizations, very different kinds of organizations. And on the one side, you had students, on the other side, you had organizations. And we asked organizations, hey, what are the problems, what are the challenges that you're dealing with right now in regards to sustainability? They formulated this problem. We posed this problem to the students, and then the organization and the students together jointly developed solutions to these problems for the companies, and now they're actually using these solutions to and implemented them in their daily life. So it is a chance for students to do an internship, to learn which skills are actually required, to take a look into the real world and see what do organizations need, how are they actually dealing with these kind of topics. And organizations, on the other hand, get fresh new perspectives, they get new ideas and have the chance to also acquire new talent. So this is a project that actually benefits different parties. Organizations that were participating in this project were, for example, Thermo Fisher. I don't know if you've heard about this. There was an insurance company. It was the Berlin Senate. There was a ministry. There were various different organizations, and it proved to be really successful. Students were really happy about it. They learned a lot, and organizations got great new ideas that they actually implemented now. Okay. So, in summary, we can say that there is a lot of potential. There is like a lot of demand for sustainable topics. Organizations acknowledge the fact that they need skill, they need people to tackle these kind of problems, but the supply is still lacking. So we just want to tell you there's a lot of potential. And it is a great field to look at there's a lot of potential for personal growth. You can actually change something in that field, and it is a lot of fun as someone who's doing daily business there to concern yourself with that. Okay, now we have the last topic, and I don't want to really get into much detail now. I just want you to answer the questions first, and then I will explain to you what this is all about. Okay, that's kind of a very clear answer here. Okay. Great. Okay. Yeah. Apparently our economy is not really future-proof, but luckily we have you, people who think innovation and commitment is really important to solve all of these problems. Yeah. So what would you actually like to change about the current economic system? Do you have something in mind? I will give you some time because that's actually a question that you need to think about for a minute or two. Mm-hmm. These are really nice points. Yeah. You kind of already touched upon the fact that we need a holistic, sustainable transformation. Linear economy has to be changed. It has to be planet oriented. Equity and equality, yes. Less capitalistic. Mm-hmm. We need green investments. Yeah, it's so important where the money flows. We need to change our short-term view. That's absolutely true. Yeah, we shouldn't exploit resources. Amazing. Wow, that's a great overview. I think you've touched upon every fact. Great. Thank you so much for your answers. Yeah. So actually that's a bit more maybe going towards the direction of our philosophy again. But we at TFL, of course, we don't know the perfect answer. We are also wiggling our way through, and we are constantly learning. We're constantly gathering new ideas. We're constantly improving. But with everything we do, we try to critically assess everything. So we ask these questions. I think you've stumbled across them, like during your studies. Is end-to-end growth possible in a world with limited resources? What is a fair price? What makes us happy? Is GDP, BP the right instrument to measure growth? Are we thinking long term? You've already touched upon that point. How resilient is the economy or the business? Because we are actually consulting organizations, we're actually talking to people and trying to tell them what is a good way to go forward. So we need to critically assess what we're saying, and we need to always constantly question ourselves. So we're kind of moving, or one ideology that we follow is really nicely summed up by the sociologist Stefan Selke, because he's talking a lot about utopian images. And he, for example, says it is necessary to think about these alternatives and to visualize what could be the perfect world in order to get inspired, in order to get motivated, in order to get ideas how to move forward. And it's not about actually reaching this perfect world. It's rather about becoming active and becoming inspired. And that's what we're doing. We try to get the best solution to every problem that we come across, even though it might not be the perfect one. And that's really important. At TFL, we only, Charlotte, you can actually switch. We acknowledge that we need to know the facts, we need to be properly informed to act properly, and we need to critically assess everything that we do. But obviously we don't know the whole truth. We don't know what's the best solution. So we need to work together. We need to bring as many perspectives as possible to the table, to exchange knowledge, and everyone has something to say about it. So that's really important. And also sometimes you just have to get going, because a lot of times what is really hindering these sustainable transformation processes is that people just don't start. So just get going, just be bold, just try new things, just just try and fail. Failure is absolutely fine. Failure is part of the process, and that's what we actively also try to do in our daily business. Yeah. So I don't know. I hope that's already everything. I hope I was able to kind of touch upon the things that we're doing. I hope you know how to got a bit of better idea about everything. And we're just interested. What did you learn? What did you find interesting? What is new? What key takeaways do you have from these past 40 minutes that we've talked?
Yeah, imagine recapping that amount of
information. It was a lot of information now.
Takes a moment. Employees are key. Yes, they are. Fabulous. Change is crucial. Initiatives, more awareness. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. Definitely taking initiative. We will let you trial and error. Yes. Having an understanding of corporations, start somewhere, have a critical mind, absolutely. Resilience, yes. Cooperation, collaboration, absolutely. Very, very true. I would like to give you a few, wrong slide. A few things that we would like to give you as well. So one thing is that you said this is very much a field of learning by doing. There are very often no blueprints that you will be working with, but you will have to find solutions on the go. And again, there is always a very good point of going to employees for that. Then another thing that is, I think, for us and for our organization also quite personal to share is environmental sustainability and adaptation, whatever, is working in the sphere between activism and job. That is not always an easy place to be. So really also choose wisely where you want to work and what you want to do and how you want to work in it, and simply be aware of that. This is not a necessarily very easy topic to work on at all times. You will find very different opinions everywhere, obviously, and frustration is a thing that simply happens because you have a very strong, as we can see, a very strong motivation and drive to move things. Another thing is that building meaningful partnerships is definitely more fun than providing a service. So this is something that we do as well, and that we encourage, build as opposed to providing a solution that is pre-made or anything like that. Working into processes and developing long-term partnerships and in-depth partnerships is definitely more fun when you're working, and also more impactful. Another thing is the pace of change is really high, so staying up to date is very important. I could give you some like, if you have questions about this, I could give you some stories to some of these things later on. So just ask if you're interested. But again, like just be aware you have to keep up with the times, with governmental rules and regulations. Those are things that are changing rapidly at the moment, and as well as public view. So you need to keep a track on that. Another thing you already said, it changing a system, which you obviously all want, which we obviously very much appreciate, means means and requires you to ask critical questions about what you're doing, where you're working and who you're working with, what the end goal is. And then last but not least, and you also said it, collaboration and knowledge sharing will get you far. It is absolutely key. This is the only thing that, like, I mean, that's really the one thing that we can do and need to foster within this industry very, very strongly to defy traditional economic practices, and to work together to drive change and to effectively drive change and to accelerate it. We can only, by sharing and collaborating very extensively, make this transition as fast as it needs to be, or at least try to be as fast as it needs to be. So, I mean, the worst thing that can really happen when you share your knowledge and collaborate is that you save the planet. Whoopsie, you know, that wouldn't be too bad. I feel that that is what I would like to tell you as the sort of last thing here. Of course, here is a little bit of an information about who we are and what we do. Otherwise, just look us up on LinkedIn. You're very welcome to connect or send us emails. Get in touch, ask questions if there's anything that you would like to know or have some ideas. Really, again, we are about collaborating and sharing our knowledge. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for contributing to the questions. This was also really insightful for us. And I feel now it's probably time for the Q&A. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. So I will let Xana and Nate take over the floor now, and they will question you on certain items.
I'm just making sure that Xana is well connected because her connection dropped off a couple of minutes ago.
Yeah, she's back. She's
Okay.
with us.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Charlotte and Sarah. It was a very insightful presentation. And as Professor Garus mentioned, we're very excited to pick your brains a little bit and just learn a little bit more about the work that you do. And I'd like to just start by asking, how do you define impact in terms of the work that the Future of Living does? And what makes the work that you do competitive in the face of other consultancy firms? As you've mentioned, there has been a huge demand in terms of employee engagement with regards to topics of sustainability. So can you help us understand a little bit more about what do you do differently? What are the tools that you use? Just a little bit more on that front.
Okay, I might start with the first one. So how do we define impact? And I think again this is twofold in the sense of that a lot of the things that we are doing are a little bit difficult to measure, but we try. So every time we work with an organization, we make sure that that employees or people in the organization are aware of what targets they have, what they want to do, that they can actually measure the impact that they have. So really, when looking at solutions and trying to define them, we also want to define things in possibly, numbers. Really, like we're able to reduce X amount, we are able to change this from that. So really knowing, having something to show and knowing how to assess these things. A little bit like, it's very close to organization controlling in that respect. So it's really the numerical part of having impact and knowing change and quantifying it. The other thing is certainly that you can look into, and that is impact as well, is how many people can we reach? So like how often do we how many people are actually now skilled to look into topics by themselves and to develop solutions. I think that's one thing where I would say that's definitely impact for us. And another thing is skill building within organizations. So one of the biggest successes, I think, is when we're sort of leaving an organization. This is longer term processes I'm talking about here, right? But when we're having been working with an organization and we're going out of it, and people continue the work that we've started with them, and we can see that is absolutely impact. This means transitioning an organization. This means starting from an organization, for example, that has a rough idea about environmental sustainability to continuing making their entire business circular. Which again, it is a year-long process, but these sort of things happen, and this is impact, and this is changing things for us. Sarah, do you have anything to put to that as well?
A teeny tiny bit. I just want to emphasize the knowledge building again, and the especially in regards to students and pupils, because I think also impact that we see is if we actually get into conversations with students again, and with I just presented the Summer School of Solutions project, for example, and we were able to develop certain master theses out of there, or people got hired and are now working actually at the firm, and these kind of things are also impacts, and these are the kind of things are also huge successes for us. And yeah, that's just the thing that I wanted to add.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. What was the second part of the question? Do you mind repeating that?
No, it was more in terms of the tools that you use, while the work that you do.
Yeah. Okay. So what we do is it is a little bit different for each organization. I think one of your questions was also like, how do you adapt it to organizations? We definitely still do. So we have developed a tool where employees can use photographs very easily and take images and map sustainability topics in their organizations. And we are often having to we do have our own tool. We often have to implement that in existing programs that organizations have, which sounds far more technical than it is, because in this at this moment in time, that sometimes means making this possible via Slack, Teams, Discord, and using different sorts of solutions to make the same process digital. Yeah, and so they're using photos and image recognition if they're using our software, and to map what is going on in the organization, and then at least have a display, being able to getting displayed and reorganized what they have actually been looking at, to then come together. And again, we have workshop stages in there to come together to look what are topics that might be impactful, what are topics that the employees are very interested in. So I have a very interesting example. There is a brilliant organization from they used to be just a German organization, and they work on environmental sustainability very intensively, and they have now globalized, and they the global offices that they acquired or that they merged with don't have environmental sustainability initiatives whatsoever. And wherever you go for each of these places, they have the employees have different priorities, and the people, you cannot put into each and every office there a new environmental sustainability manager who goes there, talks, and so they're like, okay, what are we going to do? He has to have a culture fit. So what you start with is really choosing and finding out with the different employees what is the culturally appropriate way to start, what is the thing that people are interested in, and by using these processes that are part digitalized and part workshops, we can establish this as a first point, to then go over into the activity phase where employees look into what solutions they might already have, what solutions they want to suggest, what topics, whatever they can think of what could work as processes. Obviously we support, depending on the size of the topic, with expertise and knowledge as well, but what I think that also goes a little bit into the direction of how we differentiate. We do not give the solution. We not per se going there and saying like, oh, you have a problem with plastic waste, this is what you have to do, or you want to go for your textile waste, you have to do a life cycle assessment. No, we let them get there, sort of thing. So it's more a case of like really exploring together what options are there and what is possible for the organization in the organizational context at that time. Was obviously like pushing for solutions. And then have a voting process as to what solutions people want to work at, and then looking into what to really reflect what worked and what maybe didn't, where there needs to be adjustment.
Yeah, and I guess that varies depending on the size or the sector that the client is.
Yes, it does. I think size is not necessarily the topic. It's more like, I think the way that you always kind of start, or we usually start with a team that doesn't necessarily span, that can span around the entire organization, but it doesn't necessarily. It might be one part of the team, or one like maybe one department, or maybe cross department, or where if there are already people interested in the topic of environmental sustainability and driving change. Definitely don't get me wrong, definitely there needs to be a strong commitment by the CEOs of organizations, by the leadership, by the board, to make this happen and to support this transition. So there needs to be conversation beforehand about what, for example, what finances are available, etc., etc.
I think we lost Xana.
Oh no.
That's okay. I mean, I'm just gonna bounce off of what you said. And hello, I haven't introduced myself before, so I'm Nai. And thank you both so much for your presentation. And it's really an interesting topic. So you just actually mentioned that you also need, besides the employees' engagement and commitment, you also need the commitment of CEOs. And it's a wonderful bridge to one of the topics that I was actually planning on addressing, which is your approach to employee-driven change versus top-down managerial change. So I wanted to know more about that. So why are you choosing to go through the employee route or bottom-up approach? And how does that differ from instilling change on a top-down managerial approach?
Many reasons. I really like that. I really like that question. And I think what pops into my head immediately is actually cases where we experienced why it absolutely makes sense to know employees. I mean, one thing is for definite, and I think this is a basic truth of change management and bringing transformation into organizations, is that if your employees are not in with it, you encounter problems and things block and things start to be slow. Another thing is, why wouldn't you want your employees to work on this? I mean, quite clearly, this is something that if you have a truly environmentally sustainable organization, that means that every person thinks environmental and social factors in their work. Every single person, whether that is in purchasing, whether that is someone who's operating a machine, whether that is someone who does the bookkeeping, it doesn't matter. Everyone thinks has ideas about environmental sustainability and what that means specifically for their role and their job. That is something that is so closely connected to how the person works and what they're doing, that this is really their they really need to have the skills and the opportunity and the possibilities to act upon that. I mean, this is the ideal case scenario, but this is really where we want to go when it comes to working in organizations, because then you can transform an organization. Maybe I give you also another thing where I feel like the brilliant example for bottom-up transformation. So again, the organization that was speaking about before, that are doing really cool things in terms of their environmental sustainability since years and years, that was entirely instigated by their employees. So the CEO was like, oh yeah, whatever environmental sustainability topic of something of the future. I mean, remember a couple of years ago, this was not even really talked about. It wasn't mainstream. Like people were not being like, oh yeah, and we also have to think about environmental sustainability. People were like, yeah, could, maybe, should, whatever. And so he noticed that his employees came up and were like, oh, can we have a cycling to work scheme? Or they came up and were like, oh, what electricity are we actually using? Oh, what are we doing with our waste? So like occasionally people just came up to him and he was like dismissive, like, oh yeah, whatever, until he noticed, oh wait, this is systemic. They want this. If I want to do something good for, like, if I want this company to go forward, if I want to take my employees serious, I want to implement environmental sustainability. And they have come up with amazing initiatives. So for example, you can entirely offset your private travel if you want to through the company, but not only for yourself, but for everyone in your family, for example, in case like you went for a family holiday. So they're not like saying, oh, don't go for a family holiday and fly, but they're saying, look, be aware, you can offset it here. And this raises awareness throughout the entire organization, as well as their people's families and colleagues and whatnot. No names put down, so it's anonymously. You can go there and say like, well, I flew to Spain. Oh well, okay, this is how much CO2 equivalents that cost. I can offset it here. Maybe I think about it in the future. You know, these sort of things. Like this is something that's actually new. I've never, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I've never heard about something like this in an organization. This is really cool stuff that is going on. So bottom-up transformation does work, and it is something that is kind of required in my opinion for really transitioning an organization. And overall, I mean, as we said, we're kind of activists, so we are definitely interested in politics, in economics. We want more of a systems change than just a CO2 accounting software.
Maybe I can add a teeny tiny bit to that. Also, it's also just a question of feasibility, actually. So if you imagine a CEO or management has to come up with basically everything in order to turn your organization to being sustainable, it is like a huge task, because you have basically to think about every aspect of your organization. And yes, you're the manager, you have the overview, but still your employees are the experts. Your employees know what they're doing on a daily basis, so they know what their requirements are, they know what they need to do. So if you actually put your employees in the position to decide, they can break it down into smaller stages, into smaller steps, and then your huge task actually gets divided, and everyone is responsible for a teeny tiny bit. That makes the task more feasible. It's also a psychological effect. It seems more manageable, and you instantly have more motivation to do it. And if like cool solutions come out of that everyone actually profits from, it's even better.
Totally. Maybe just again one little case for that. And then we can go on. So I was at a conference last year at Wembley Stadium, and the Eagles, who are a American football team, were talking about the environmental sustainability and how the management, they were racking their brains about what they're going to do about water, about reducing the amount of water that they're using in stadiums. And this was like a month-long process, and he's talking about it and how they like consulted people and were not sure, and everything seems to be like either too expensive or not feasible, not quick enough, whatever. And then one day the manager just for this entire project walked around in the stadium and saw the janitor and just randomly asked him what to do. Well, long story short, they spend a couple of $1 on each appliance in there and save 5,000 gallons of water every match day. You know, maybe it really makes sense to actually look at the people who are working with on these topics in your stadium or in your organization, or those things to make change possible.
Yeah, thank you so much. And like just speaking of working with employees and then managers as well, we're also interested in knowing how you run your business too. So for example, how does it practically work? Do you approach a client with certain where you see potential in them so that they can take things to the next level, or do you get approached by clients saying, we need help with this. This is our terms of references, our TORs. This is our missions that we'd like to do, and please do it. And to what extent is this constraining or actually enabling for you to do your work and have that type of impact?
Yeah, I mean, this is both. We have organizations that we might reach out to where we feel that we have where we see potential. We also have organizations that approach us. So obviously we are relatively young, so our sales channels are not the traditional very much, you know, the traditional sales channels of like, oh, we are out here, we are a consultancy, everyone knows us, just ask us, sort of thing that organizations would naturally turn to. It's more that we speak a lot with people, we do network a lot, we are also in different organizational networks, and the demand is absolutely there. And so it almost always starts with someone listening to something that we talk about, that we already like share some information somewhere, or that recommendations, for example. Also we work, for example, with the Commerce and Trade Chamber in Germany. So those are just like different types of channels where we're going to. In terms of how we collaborate, I think there's two things. One thing is that I said we actually choose who we want to work with, where we see potential, and where we feel that might not work. Which is a very fortunate position, but there need to be a couple of key things there, and that one of the things that you said is like commitment. We cannot make people commit, but often organizations come to us with a question and they don't know what that entails, or with ideas. Don't forget, this is very new for organizations. Like some are really far along the way, and yet often it's very new. So like I said, we want to look at our waste from textiles that we're having, but only looking at the last part of it, and want to find a solution for a process that's already there. And of course, this is something where we are not saying, hey, let's just look at that last piece of the puzzle, but we want to work through the entire process with them. And this is something that is a very difficult truth for organizations to swallow. I admit that. But it is definitely our job to support organizations to be brave enough and to see that it is possible to go through the entire life cycle assessment, to actually review your business model where possible. To make changes happening. So it's more like of a supportive role rather than learning and training and collaboration role. That's what I'm saying. Like partnerships are so much more fun than actually. I mean, we could have gone there and be like, okay, you want a solution for this specific problem? Well, the solution is going to be donate it.
Okay.
You know, that's absolutely not what we were going for. You know, this is but more like really train them. Okay, what does it mean when you're actually approaching this topic? And we're actually quite successful with a lot of these cases, and they are really fun to look into because you get to work with an organization as a whole. Then again, this is usually like smaller to middle-sized organizations where that works like that.
Mm-hmm.
Charlotte, can I just make a bridge over what you were talking about? I just want to understand a little bit more about your business model. You also mentioned that in the future of living, you commit to placing people and the planet over profits. I'd like to understand a little bit more about what are your revenue streams? How do you work? How does your business function in practical terms? And perhaps a second one would be around, you mentioned that it's hard to measure the impact, but how do you measure the effectiveness of the work that you do? And do you have any KPIs? How do you actually make sure, because you showed us some case studies, but how do you actually measure and make sure that what you're doing has an impact? How do you measure that? What are your KPIs?
Okay. I think the first one is that we are selling consultancy services. We also have some grant fundings for certain educational projects. So those are things that we do. In terms of and you are actually pointing to a very interesting point here. Right now, as I said, we are founded as a limited or a GmbH. That is not something that was sort of like a first step necessity. That is not something that we want to go with on the long run. On the long run, we would like to find a different organizational structure that is more in terms of owned by the people within the organization, rather than having like a traditional ownership structure. Very interesting concepts. I won't get into detail with that, but yeah. Another thing is that we do consultancy service and develop products on the go, because that allows us to be, as of yet, very free in what we're doing, and not necessarily take on investment that might restrain us in our options that we have. So much for financially. Our business model in that respect is probably quite traditional in the sense that we are selling services to organizations mainly. The other point is how we measure impact. There are very I think they're very clear. For some things, you can really just say, well, count it, right? You can know how much water you're using. You can know how much electricity you're using, what electricity you're using. You know how much waste you're producing. You know, these things are all very countable and hard, and in those terms, hard facts, and those are measured according to, for example, the GHG standards or other framework standards that apply in certain ways. So, you know, I believe that's. I hope I answered the question roughly with that, considering that the time is probably now a little bit short. But again, if you have, and that's something that I want to say in general, if you have any questions that you feel like, oh, after this you want to know more about, or this is a topic that you're maybe doing research on, or that you're specializing in it, you're interested in that, just absolutely feel free to reach out to us and ask.
Thank you very much for that. Perhaps just one last question before we jump into the audience in the room. I'd really like to know, just in terms of, how do you see the future for this type of work? Do you see it as a transition tool for now? Companies are still adapting, and they need to make sure that their employees are well-rounded in terms of sustainability topics? Or how do you see on the long run the work that you do operating? And are you excited about this future? What are your prospects for that?
Sarah, do you want to? You're smiling.
I think, as we already touched upon, this transformation and these processes are getting more and more important, and there's more and more demand coming up. So I think our business model as it is right now is working, and we can definitely sustain that for the future as well. But also, as we've said already, we're in a constant learning process. So we're not limited to only provide these kind of services, to provide these kind of products. We're always evolving, we're always adjusting, we're always adapting, and we're always developing. So I think we have certain tendencies where we want to go in the future, and next week we have a strategy meeting which will be really interesting, because then we'll define a bit more about what we're doing in the next year. But ideas often at TFL evolve really, and they really come out of conversations. For example, students talked to us and told us that they have like the need more about sustainability. They don't have that in their universities. It's not a priority. So we thought about, like, what can we do here? And now we've got this little nice product, and we're currently figuring out how to best place it and where to put it and how to offer it. And I think this is like one of the major points of our philosophy. We are learning, we're developing, and that's where the future will take us. But generally, the topic that we're standing for, learning by doing, knowledge building, consulting, is something that we don't need to worry about, because there's such a huge demand out there.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you very much for that. It was quite insightful. I'm going to pass over to my colleague, Nai. She's going to moderate the questions in the room. And over to you, Nai. Thank you.
Thank you, Xana. Just, Mrs. Garros, do we have time for maybe 5 minutes for questions? I know we ran a bit over time, but we also started a bit late. So
yeah, we started 15 minutes late, so we have 10 minutes for questions.
10 minutes, perfect. Okay, well, anyone has any questions they want to ask? Okay, we have Swatahina.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. It was really interesting. What I wanted to ask is, did you ever face failure, and how did you manage?
Did we ever face failure? Yeah, sure. Like, or something like, of course we had to learn the hard way that we need commitment, and there is jobs that at this point in time were not possible to work. They didn't happen. So of course we were, especially in the beginning, sometimes going into organizations and really being motivated and wanting to do a lot and very fast and everything. And then we noticed, okay, well, there is actually not that type of commitment, or people are having very different types of problems at that time that might not have anything to do with environmental sustainability, and it's absolutely not a priority, and not even in the management. And those are things that you learn the hard way, what you need to look out for in advance. So I think this is maybe something where I feel. And how to see, even in those situations, how to support that possibly, and how to get into a situation like that, how to possibly get out of a situation like that, where you feel like, okay, this is maybe not really where the organization is, like this is not how far they're going to go and where they want to go, and that is obviously frustrating for us, because we're so driven by having an impact. So yes, that happens. That is learning. That absolutely makes sense. And I feel the best and most powerful thing that we have at the Future Living is our team, in the sense that we're fine with that. We work through it. We work together with our frustrations. We come into the job as we are. And I think interestingly, one of the most important things that kind of stuck with me for years and years and years, that my sister said about choosing your job, is it's not that important what you do, it is important who you do it with, in terms of how happy and fulfilled you are. And I am happy with people who are working for impact and working towards purpose. But I'm also happy with people in the culture that is very, very open, and where you can bring in your frustrations, where you can bring in your happiness, where you can bring in everything that you have, and you're always having someone to catch you. So this is yeah, Sarah's nodding. I think that is probably one of the strongest parts about how we internally deal with failure, because quite frankly, with most of the other things so far, you can handle that. It is the work inside that makes failure very often very hard, rather than so far, most risks you can anticipate in a sense. So yeah, I mean, do your homework, anticipate your risks, but also have your internal support network. Sort of.
Thank you so much for that. Anyone has another question? Yes, Charlotte.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. My name is Charlotte, and I just wanted to talk a bit about finances maybe, because I know that most firms who take sustainability into account know that they have to do it, but maybe sometimes they don't have the funds to do that. So how do you maybe justify the fact that they have to spend money on consultancy, and then on top of that spend even more money on finding solutions to maybe reduce their activity? Like, how do you motivate them, per se?
Two things. I think, to be very honest with you, I don't think I need to. I would feel like if an organization comes to us or speaks to us about environmental sustainability, they're usually quite committed in doing that, and want to change something. Quite frankly, a business model that isn't based on environmental sustainability is pretty risky in my opinion. So I don't think I've ever been asked the question, how do you justify spending money on environmental sustainability with a client, because this is what they feel like really is necessary to do, and what we feel is necessary to do. The other thing is that we absolutely know and acknowledge that there are financial hurdles to organizations in doing this. So we have developed a couple of things that are very like low level entry in a way to this topic, by like bundling groups of organizations together, have them network, and have them learn about the fast steps and ideas that they might want to do, already enabling them to really continue the journey by themselves. So this is probably especially targeted at like smaller organizations that might struggle where to carve out a position for environmental sustainability or something like that. We want to bring the knowledge into an organization. So another very clear thing for us is we don't want to go do a job, leave, and all that's left is a solution to one thing sort of thing. We want to enable organizations to do their own journey and to develop that further by themselves. So I think it's a combination of these things. Oh yeah, and maybe another thing is that we, in terms of low entry, which I think is absolutely necessary as well, or like low like easy, no barriers entry, we do have some programs that are cross-funded by the trade chamber, is it? No, I think so. Translation of official terms, that are cross-funded and that are specifically designed to help organizations to enter processes around environmental sustainability. And that definitely makes sense. Again, always with a goal of leaving something and leaving ideas of how to continue this without us. So we don't intend to have a never-ending reliance on our work.
Thank you. Anyone else? Maybe we have time for, I think, one more. I think you've covered pretty much everything that they had in mind in your in your presentation, in your answers. So I think maybe we can close it there. We'd like to just maybe take a photo. Usually we do that in person, but it would be nice to have a memory of this conversation. So you've already, so they've already taken photos, so that's good. I guess we can close it there, Mrs. Gamos. I don't know if you want to say a final word before we close.
Well, a very, very short final word. I would like to thank our guest very deeply for this very insightful presentation and for having been so honest when answering the questions. It was very, 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 very good, because I think that you really presented the way you perceive your work, and yeah, I think that many of our students learned things from you today, and are going to probably keep in touch with you because they are working currently in very similar fields as yours, and so they may have very, very practical and technical questions to ask. So thank you very much for your availability and your participation today, and thanks to all the students for their active participation. Thank you all. Thank you, Xana and Nay. I would like to applaud all of you. And just say Happy New Year again to everyone. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I close this seminar now. So thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank
you.
Lovely to speak to you.
Yeah.